Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today the one, the only Lynn Bell. Now, the last time I interviewed Lynn Bell, it was 2012. And at that time, not a lot of people knew me, but I will tell you, I was so nervous because she is such a beautiful writer and a brilliant mind. She is certainly one of our superstars in astrology. And now to be here 13 years later, just over 13 years later, and to be part of a very special event with Lynn Bell, that is incredible. And this very special event is happening at the Omega Institute, the iconic Omega Institute in the tri-state area, just outside New York City. So we're going to talk about that and all the goddess energies there, but also we're just going to have fun. I'm sure we will have a lot of fun. Lynn,
How can I not,
welcome.
how can I not have fun with you, Nadia?
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited about that. So yeah, like I was saying, um, I remember like you came in, something had happened outside. And so when you came in, you were in a bit of a whirlwind, right? Like something was going on. And so I'm just watching you and I'm in awe, right? I'm like, oh, fuck, this is Lynn Bell. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm swearing. I really shouldn't do that. But okay, I'll cut that out. Okay. I was like, oh my God, Lynn Bell. And then you go, and then we sit down. I go, okay, we're gonna start. And you're like, and then I click start. And then you were like, you became this elegant swan. You went from being this tornado to a swan. Oh, yes, absolutely. This is what people need to pay attention to. And I was amazed at your professionalism. And that always stood out to me. So, how lovely to now be here with you 13 years later. To be able to share an event with you, to have seen you, of course, at different events, but now to be part of this very special event. So, Lynn, I just, these are the moments that make me feel like all the hard work I did, the sacrifices I did for my work, it was worth it. It was worth it. You remind me of that.
Yeah, well, seeing what you've accomplished in that time, and the incredible confidence and energy and faith you put in to what you could do, and all the hard work before that on your master's degree, all the and really having that energy to break through that sort of a culture that is like, who's this? And to take a new medium and to make astrology available so widely. I mean, it's really incredible what you've done. I see you riding your chariot through the stars, through the signs of the zodiac. See you driving, like something with desire to bring the light. And that's very beautiful, and I'm very appreciative of what you've done and what you've accomplished. In awe, really.
Well, look, it's mutual, of course. I'm thinking about all the light that you bring, all the brilliance that you bring. So I know that a lot of people already know you, but I would love for you to just give us a little bit of background, like what you love about astrology, what you've done in astrology that you're particularly proud of so far. I would love to hear some of that.
Well, I have like several steps. I mean, one of the things I was talking to my good friend Darby Costello yesterday about the time at the CPA, the Center for Psychological Astrology in London. So people may not know this. I live in France, so we're in two different time zones here, morning and whatever. And I started teaching at the Center for Psychological Astrology, which is the school founded by Liz Green, at a time when I would say there were so many brilliant astrologers teaching there and inspired by her extraordinary work, of course. And it was an opportunity to go into depth. She gave us free range to explore whatever we wanted to explore. And there was something about the way we could do astrology. And at that time, there was no Zoom, and people would actually move to London for 2 years because they wanted to study at this place. So we had an extraordinary international student body who were really invested. They would arrange their life to come and to be able to work in person. And there is, so I started teaching in 1995 and continued until Liz stopped, which I think is 2014. And and then we continued to do workshops, and then John Green created an online school. So we continue to work, but it's very different now, but still wonderful. But I'm also had many years in the French community. And before that, I learned astrology in the United States because I'm from Chicago. So I have different layers, let's say, of building an approach to astrology and working with people over time. And I'm a consultant, so I work with people and I still consult and work with people on a regular basis. So.
And how many books have you written so far? Because
Well,
I
I've
remember, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I've written two books, and I part of a third book, which is currently out of print, The Mars Quartet, which I wrote with Melanie Reinhardt, Darby Costello, and Liz Green. And that there's maybe a project to get some of that work back in print, but I kind of would like to redo it. The books were in seminar form, so which was a literary. I mean, some people write and speak the same way, but I don't, and so everything is absolutely rewritten and filled with research. But it's in this form of the dialogue between the teacher and the audience. And the first book is on is called Planetary Threads. It's on family patterns, and it's work that I am absolutely passionate about how we are connected to people, but not. It isn't only on the family. It's also on. It was on the third and 11th houses. And I recently found a review online of this book by someone I don't know saying, no, these houses are very, that really love that part of it. That I talked about siblings, and I talked about how we're connected with the people we came in with, but also the tribe of our choosing, what it means to have a friend, what it means to be, to pull in the like-minded, um, and the effect that that has on our destiny, on our fate in some ways. And then my second book is on solar returns, which I got very crazily passionate about as a young astrology at a time we did all our calculations by hand. And because I was doing that, I was seeing and drawing charts by hand at the time. Was seeing patterns emerge. In a way, sometimes we're flooded with information in astrology, but I started to see patterns, repeating patterns. And I'm not the only person who's done that, of course. But it was very exciting work to do solar returns. And because I'm a psychological astrology, I do psychological astrology,
And you are astrology as well, so it's all good. Yeah.
but not only, right?
Yes, yeah.
Interested in working with people over time of what they're invited to step into in their life. Every year is not the same. And I'm sure all the people listening know that. They know that when they have a new birthday, some years something lights up in an extraordinary way. And some years there's a task we're offered, and we know we're walking into that. And how you work with those invitations from our own celestial pattern.
So let me ask you, since you mentioned solar returns, and that's how I know you, because I remember reading your book way back in the day. So it was so thrilling when you came in, and I'm trying to be professional, but to actually be able to sit with you and interview you after I'd loved your book so much. So let me tell you, I am somebody who really finds any kind of excuse to travel, right? I love to travel. I really like, you don't got to tell me twice. It's a trip. It's a plane. Let's go. I don't drive, but I love being with planes. I tell you, I love it. So, and I could go on about that train. Like it's planes are portals and how different I feel. My energy shifts, how much I love it so much. But having said that, I do tend to travel for my birthday, right? to get the best solar return chart possible. What are your thoughts? Am I being silly? What do you
No,
think?
I don't think you're being silly at all. I remember Volgin, who was kind of the high priest of solar returns in France in the previous generation. He, at the very end of his book, he said, traveling for your solar return is an act of astrological magic. And I think I tend to work with birthplace solar returns, and I live in because I've found that they still have power. So even if you travel for your birthday, it's good to look at this birthplace solar return. But I remember one day for a big birthday, my beloved said, "Let's go to Seville." And I've always wanted to go to Seville. And I thought, great. And then I looked at the solar return and Saturn was angular. I'm like, no way. Like, so obviously there's a layer of how a solar return works. But for someone like you who is who has a vision and puts everything behind the vision you have, believes that it's possible, which, is your incredible Sagittarian temperament, right? I think that doing that for solar returns is extremely important. And of course, not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the means to do it. Not everybody has the whatever. But there are years where I would absolutely travel for my solar return because but sometimes, I'm invited somewhere on my birthday a couple of years ago. Actually, I was in Omega for an event like the one we're going to be doing in early October. And it was absolutely wonderful to be there, like to be celebrated. I was teaching on my birthday, and there were 50 people who sang happy birthday to me, like which, I don't necessarily advertise, like, but it was so delightful. And that year was incredible. It was a Jupiter year as well for me. So everything about it had that Jupiter feeling that was reinforced. And sometimes the universe just sets that up for you. So
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I met you at the UAC conference. At that conference, my progressed moon was conjunct my 10th house Jupiter, like exact over the course of that extended weekend. So it was just amazing how you were part of that experience as well, like this emotional connection to my sense of destiny. It's a 10th house Jupiter at that. So that hope, right? That excitement, that sense of the possible. And I am very much like, yeah, I always try to think, okay, yes, we can do this. How can we do it? Let's make it happen. Yeah, let's do it first and then figure it out later. I've done that to my detriment at times, I will say, but yeah, I've done that many, many times.
I know people like you, like Ray Merriman wrote a book on where traveling for the solar return. And and I think it's great to do that. If that is what moves you, that is the way to work with it, right? And and I would, I'd still look at which planets were angular in the birthplace solar return because you're still working on those, right? There's like a base note or a fundamental pattern that may be far away. And I think with your temperament of reinvention, Nadiya, and creation, probably much further away than for other people.
Yeah, so it becomes part of the whole process, that creative process for me. Yeah, it's fascinating. I like last year, so my birthday is coming up in January. Earlier this year in January, I was going to have a birthday and I was looking at the solar return charts, and the best chart seemed to be about maybe 4 hours from where I am here in Canada, my parents' house. And so I was like, okay, and I had gone to Australia and I'd loved it so much. And I'd only been there for like 10 days. And I was like, you know what? I would love to stay, but the solar return was so awful. It was awful.
I
And it was,
understand.
okay, yes, it was Mars retrograde. I think it was at 29 of Cancer, conjunct the descendant of this chart, like all over Australia, anywhere I went. And I was like, oh no, I don't need Mars retrograde on my descendant energy ever again. Like, but I was like, oh no. So I ended up coming back home and I was saying to my aunt the other day, I was telling her about this and I was like, this is something I guide people as well. And it's one thing if you don't have a choice, right? Sometimes there are things that are much more important than traveling or whatever the case might be. But if you can, and if you have a choice, and if you're in the spirit to do it, then I have to do it, right? Because this is what I teach people. I want to live my truth and what I share. I want that congruency, that unity to be there with what I present.
Well, but what's interesting about Mars in Cancer retrograde is you are closer to home this year. You are connected to your tribe and to family. Uh, and there have been years when you've lived far away and seen them much less. So the Mars Cancer retrograde is still there. It's just chosen in a different way. And if you had had a solar return with Mars retrograde on the descendant, you might have attracted all the old masculine patterns of your past that you definitely did not want to conjure up and relive in the present.
Yeah, exactly. I really did not want to do that. You're mentioning earlier your beloved. It's something that once I started talking about this, I really felt like I talk about it whenever it feels right and whenever I can. But I was with somebody for 7 years. We broke up during the pandemic. And after about 4 months, I met somebody else. And at first, it was like a dream come true. It was like absolute bliss. And then this person started getting jealous. And then they started getting mean. And altogether, I was with this person for 9 months. And the last weeks of being with this person, he had become violent. And I didn't even realize what was happening, right? I had no, I mean, I'm so compassionate. I was like, oh, he's insecure, he's this, he's that. I was so used to just being the one to calm energies down. But I remember the moment when I realized, oh my God, this person really wants to hurt me. And this was after a couple of times when he'd like thrown me against walls and things like that. But whenever I see something like that, like Mars retrograde conjunct the descendant, I'm like, oh no, I have put an energetic block between me and dude. I am not interested in dude or even any shade of dude, right? Any kind of similarity to that experience, I just don't want. So that was a part of it as well that made me say, okay, go home, leave Australia, even though I loved it. But I'll be back in 2029 because they're going to have an eclipse there and a conference there. So that'll be nice.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. That'll be
Yeah.
wonderful. They're great. It's great to go to Australia. I've always had so much fun there. And like you, I've only gone for like, well, I think the longest I went was maybe 3 weeks, but 10 days, 2 weeks, and it's really a long way to go for such a short time. So maybe
Yeah, that's true.
maybe
But
it will
if,
be on the
yeah,
right birthday, the conference.
yeah. Well, look, if you like planes like I do, it's totally fine for that long flight to happen. I mean, I just enjoy myself so much when I'm there.
Well,
So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So thank you for that advice. I think this year I've chosen, see this coming year, I will have Mars, Pluto, Sun conjunct. And so it's really been about trying to figure out the best position for that triple conjunction, keeping it out of the financial houses, that's for sure, out of the second and the eighth.
Pluto Sun conjunct. Wow.
Yes, there's going to be that triple conjunction of Mars and Pluto and my Sun. And I want to keep it out of the angles, out of the financial houses. And so it really becomes about really paring it down, right? And it seems to me like the only place to go for my birthday this year where the chart is somewhat okay or is the best it can be is going to be Hawaii. And I'm
Hmm.
not Yeah, which is nice enough, but I never really felt Hawaii call me, I never really felt that connection to Hawaii like I have in a lot of other places that I felt called to go. And I've heard it's lovely and that's wonderful, but um
It
oh,
depends where in Hawaii. And I know people there who are involved with the spirit of the land, who are connected to the traditions. Because there's a similarity between the Maori and the Hawaiians. They're basically from the same root people. And some islands are just cemented over and holiday places and very American. But if you go to places on Maui or Kauai, you find more the spirit of the original island. So I would maybe start looking at that. And maybe a trip to a volcano on your birthday is a great way to do that Mars Pluto.
yeah.
And
Oh
there are,
wow.
maybe a trip to the goddess because it's Pele, the goddess
Yeah.
of the volcano in Hawaii. And so there's a way. And Maurice lived in Hawaii for years.
Oh
Uh,
wow, okay.
he could be a great guide for that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, that's great. And it'll be a milestone. It'll be my 50th birthday. So I really wanted to do something very special. And so now, as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to go to Hawaii, obviously. It'll be great.
Yeah, obviously. But there is a spirit of the land there that is really incredible. But you just have to get out of the tourist overlay to do
Mhm.
it. And, it is a place you can go at that time of year, probably whale watching as well, which is another way of dealing with the big, with the big invisible energy, because we rarely see whales. They're spirits of the earth that are not always available to us. So there's a lot of ways you can, in a way, as I said, it's an act of astrological magic to go somewhere
Mhm.
for your solar return. So it's not just going there, but it's also working consciously with those energies and bringing up something in yourself or being aware of something in yourself that is calling you, you know,
Wow.
yeah. Just like,
Astrological magic. Yeah.
the Mars retrograde in Cancer is calls you home, calls you to what has been there with you emotionally for your past, and maybe calls you to act in that sphere in a caring way, right?
Yeah.
Cared for and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I have felt more inclined to spend more time with my family as of late. So that's been nice. And just before, when I was getting ready to sit down with you, I was thinking, the thing I really like about travel is like I'm so active and I feel like I get so healthy. And then I come home and like the food is the best food in the world because it's my mom's and my dad's, right? So it's like, oh my God, the best food in the world because they cook it for me. And so yeah, finding that balance if I want to be home more, maybe that's also part of that Mars retrograde for me because I have that in the solar return chart, regardless of what house it ended up in. It is there.
It is
Yeah.
it is the task. Every planet gives you a task and it will express itself wherever you are. But it might have been that you were more homey in another place if you had chosen another place. So the Mars retrograde would have worked somewhere.
Mhm.
And yeah, I love that tracking of how to work with the energy and giving people clues to that. Sort of what will you do?
Right, right. Well, look, speaking of working with energies, I love that you weaved in Maurice here. His love is here in the room with us, right? And it is Maurice who sort of takes the lead on this incredible event that takes place at the Omega Institute. And the theme is going to be celebrating the feminine in astrology, astrology consciousness, and the great shift. You are one of the big dog astrologers who is going to be there And I'm really looking forward to this, like just that connection to the divine feminine. How do you understand that piece of it, the divine feminine piece of it in astrology?
Well, talking, first of all, talking to astrology can be very techy and very scientific. And before we had the computers, there were all there was a lot of that. And that mindset would then talk about the intuitive astrologers a little bit dismissively, right? And this is a very long time ago, and I don't think anybody. Well, there can be some of that if you like, but Maurice is like you. He's always ready to get on an airplane. He grew up in Africa, Israel. We'll move to the U.S., Hawaii, Sedona. All magical telluric places,
Mhm.
uh, and creates an extraordinary energy wherever he goes. He's dedicated to the other animals,
Mhm.
really has a dedication to animals, to nature, in a way very few people I know do. And so he chose Omega because of that incredible place. It's like we don't think of upstate New York as magical, but if you've ever been in the Hudson Valley, it's like entering a jewel. It's really such a resourceful. It's a place where you feel really resourced, even for only a few days. Right? You stay in
Mhm.
cabins, you eat all local organic food, and you have this ability to just be in a space with other people where there's also ritual. So that's that. But how do I understand the feminine in astrology? Coming back to that question. Um, it's like in Western culture, there's the overlay of masculine consciousness, but this other awareness, this other form of awareness, whether we call it um, intuitive, or a non-rational, non-logical way of thinking, has always been part of the esoteric arts. They are about stepping into other forms of knowing. Right now, we can call that feminine or not, but in the astrological, but I think that it invites all of us to be in a larger connection to the source. And that sometimes, and I don't want to say that masculine energy isn't that, but there's a part of the universal energy which is about action and will and drive, and which can also be deeply connected to source. And so they're just different pathways, right? They're not disconnected, they're not enemies. So the feminine, however, uh, also I mentioned working at the Center for Psychological Astrology, and there was a period where it was all women teachers, which was very rare because at conferences, for some reason, the men tended to be the dominant speakers, but the powerhouses were all women. And it had to do with going deeply into psyche, touching deeply into the soul, and to a mythic reality, and an emotionally connected reality. So we can say, because the moon and Venus are traditionally the only feminine planets. And of course, I've noticed there's a new book out this year on Ceres, a new book on Juno. There's a lot of interest in the other goddesses and the new planets of Sedna and Eris. And your work, and Lilith, of course, has been part of French astrology for a long time. So we've expanded our sense of this, but I think they've always been there, even in our basic symbols, the basic primary symbols of the sun and the moon, which are very, the moon, especially the feminine, but also Venus, the Venus archetype. They're much more complex than we tend to think. People think they're simple. Nothing, nothing is so. In fact, the universe is both simple and amazingly. has amazing layers where the more we know, the deeper we go. So,
I love that. And, I just did a talk just the other day with at the AA, right? The Astrological Association. So I was on the online portion of it. Some people, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen me promote that. And it was such a wonderful experience. I I did my talk about Venus, and it was about seeing Venus differently, interpreting her differently, knowing her differently. And a big part of it, and this talk was like stuff I hadn't shared before, like her other mythologies, right? Some of her mythologies, they are, I mean, she could be really mean. She could be so competitive, jealous, um, petty, even as well. She could be just so, I think it's insecure for you to feel like if someone else is considered beautiful, that you are not as beautiful. Like that type of sort of almost childish psyche in a way that she has sometimes displayed. And then she's had her moments, of course, of being more elevated than that. But I think that is all a part of what you just spoke of, this fact that these energies are complex just as any of us are complex. And the ancients, they looked at Venus and they saw this planet moving in the sky and all the interactions that planet was having. And it was like television for them, right? It's like they're watching TV when they looked at the sky. And you can literally see these stories playing out. If you've ever been, I'm sure you have been in a place that was like sort of completely pitch black for miles around. So there's absolutely no light pollution. The way that the sky looks is, I mean, I had experienced that a couple of years ago, and it was breathtaking to say the least, right? To see how much movement happens in the sky at all times. You can literally see it. And so it made perfect sense to me that the ancients would look at this and see television and see stories of Venus, you know, going off here and having a competition with Athena and then going off there. And yeah, so
disappearing there. And
yeah,
when you
yeah.
say other mythologies, you mean the more hidden stories in the Greek mythology or other cultures as well,
Well,
Nadiya?
it's interesting you say that because I did talk about the planet Venus and its divine association in Aztec mythology. So it's so interesting you say that. Although I did focus largely on like stuff that comes from ancient Greece and through Rome as well. But I do really like the Greek stuff. I've been so used to it and so connected to it for so long, but it has been incredible learning more and more about indigenous astrological practices. One of my books, I co-wrote it with Yuridia Robles, and she's like a world expert on Mayan astrology. And so it really is her wisdom, but through many conversations, I sort of put it into my own words and put together this introductory book. So it's like we co-wrote it together, you could say in a way, but it really is her wisdom. And boy, did I learn so much. I learned so much. Like with her sitting down, having all these conversations, just being like, wow, No, but no, I make it very clear. I'm always about giving credit where credit is due. I
Yeah, that's
love honoring the academic ancestors, other people. I love celebrating other people. So I'm very quick to say, hey, I heard it from this person or that person. But
yeah.
yeah, it's incredible how these symbols, they have a core archetypal energy, right? But how they manifest in different parts of the world is remarkable, certainly.
And I know that I watched a video of you with her, I think. Maybe it was an interview or I watched one of the things probably we were on Zoom together with.
Yeah.
Oh man, I found it wonderful. And I've explored that a little bit myself and other, but the whole idea of Venus is huge in Islamic culture, but of course, or in Hindu culture, it's seen a little bit differently. So it's really interesting to start to stretch our mind behind. There's always a goddess of love. There's always a goddess of love wherever you're from. But I'm part Greek. I had my maternal grandfather was born in Greece, and so I have a deep ancestral link to the tradition as well. And and like you, love those myths, but we're always finding hidden parts of them. I was recently working on something and I found something I'd never seen in the Hermetic myths, like just a story. I was like, wow, how come I didn't know about this? So, hmm, again, we're always finding new layers, even after dipping into this. And we know that the myths, they're not just stories people made up, they're archetypal relations with the cosmos, just as astrology brings us to this archetypal relationship with the cosmos and our own soul.
Can you, when you say archetypal, define that?
Well, I think it's Jung who used the word
Mhm.
archetype for the first time, and there's this notion that we see in human culture uh, certain patterns that underlie the way we give meaning to the universe, right? So there is, for example, a patterning. You can take archetype back to the Platonic ideal, I think, and there's this whole idea of the solar principle, the one again who brings the light to the world and who steps out of a kind of, you could say, group consciousness into an individual path. And when you follow that, there are certain things that tend to happen. There are tests, there are meetings with helpful creatures that test a person's qualities of being, of generosity, of kindness, of openness, or arrogance. So we could say there are archetypal patterns in life that we find in almost every culture. They have different names, different stories, different outcomes. But when people like Joseph Campbell studied myth, they find that these patterns reveal themselves in the human story, right? In human lives over and over again in big sweeps, heroic sweeps, but also in the most ordinary ways. They
Yeah.
all reveal themselves.
It's amazing how we live those myths. That's how I've always thought about like archetypes. Like everybody in the world wants or knows love. Like I happen to believe that if you're here because there was love at some point, somewhere, somehow. If you're here, you've been loved, right? And that very idea of love, and of course, there are different types of love. Many cultures talk about the different types of loves, but that is archetypal, isn't it?
Yeah,
That need to give something of ourselves to another, that need to and desire to be known by another, that desire to feel bonded to another. These are very universal. They are all over the world. We see these. And yes, so much of how you describe, I love that you pointed out that story because that is, of course, we see it in a lot of myth, but in modern times we see it in movies like The Matrix, right? What
sure.
is right? And they call it, sometimes they call it the Christ archetype as well. Like that's one way to understand it. But this whole idea, like you said, of a person who is the hero, right? He's the hero. He's willing to step outside. He's bringer of light, or he's connected to something that seems like his own path in a way, and how he goes about it. And this is something that all of us end up doing in one way or another. Some do
Right.
it more boldly than others, right? But some people do it in more subtle ways. But all of us, in some way or another, we go through some process of uncovering something within ourselves that we feel is uniquely ours to give, and a journey that helps us to understand it.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think the solar, that we're talking about a solar archetype here. Of
Yes.
course, that is probably easiest to understand, but it's that whole thing that opens in you and says, who am I? What am I meant to be doing here? And these questions, which I, I asked really young. Did you ask these questions when you were really young, Nadia?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'll tell you, when I was a child, I remember this so clearly. I was a small child, and I came to my mom and I said, Mom, How do we know our religion is the right religion? And my mom said to me, imagine like a little child saying this, right? And my mom said to me, this is not for us to know. All we know is that every religion teaches us to be a good person, to be a loving person. So if you're a loving person, you can be part of every religion. And I remember growing up and just really celebrating all these different holidays because it was, it was Toronto at the time. There was a very small South Asian community, and South Asia is very diverse in terms of the religions. It's mainly Muslim, Sikh, and Hindu, and then they have a Christian minority as well. Those are the big ones. And I remember we would go to different ceremonies and events and celebrations at these different places. And as I grew, of course, like going to churches all over the world and seeing the most amazing art, but then also being open to feeling the sacred energy there. And so, yeah, I absolutely have been pondering and asking and wondering and trying to conceptualize answers to these questions as far back as I can remember. I think it's the Sag moon in me. What do you think it is in you that makes you ask these questions?
Oh, well, what is it in me? Well, I have a really strong Jupiter moon aspect. So
Mm.
that, but 12th house, strong 12th house, where, because when you're a strongly 12th house planet, a person, very often you feel differently than the environment around you. You're like, people are saying this, but there's something else. It's almost as though it can feel like a misfit energy. It can feel you're off or wrong or not recognized or something like that. And all of those things we all feel, many of us feel in our childhood at certain times. I certainly did. But it was almost as though my senses and my attention and my awareness were always looking for something else. So I got really interested in astrology when I was quite young. I was like, by the time I was 12, I knew the birth dates of everybody in my class. 13, I knew everybody. And I had two astrological twins, and we were born a couple hours apart. So that actually helped me. I'm 13 years old, right? Helped me start to look at what's the pattern, what are the things that we have in common, and why that day and not another day, what's the difference. So it was very instructive. And it was I was looking for something to explain the world outside the explanation I was giving that didn't work for me. It sounds like you had an absolutely beautiful mother who said it's all about love. I don't think anybody said that to me in my childhood. Nobody ever said anything like that, as far as I can tell about.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, because it was a time in Toronto that Toronto was growing so quickly, and there were all these immigrant communities coming in, and it was wonderful. I mean, I remember growing up mainly in an area that had a lot of Greeks and a lot of Italians. So there would be things that happened within those families, and I would go there. And then there was like that small South Asian community, like I said, and every weekend you saw them in Little India. Now it's called Little India, right? You saw the same people every single weekend there. And so, yeah, when I think about it now, I think, wow, what a privilege to be able to be open to the world at such a young age, to know the world in a way at such a young age. And it suited me so well because, like I said, Sag Moon energy. I remember really feeling like, yeah, I just want to know everything. I want to see everything. I want to do everything. And I will say this, I remember as a young child thinking to myself, okay, I know that my soul has lived before. Like I know that I've had other incarnations. I could feel that as a child very strongly, that I've had other incarnations. But I remember thinking so clearly in my mind, but I want to do it all in this life. I don't want it to be about faith. I don't want it to be like, oh, yes, in a past life I was at the pyramids. No, I want to know I was at the pyramids. I want pictures that I was at the pyramids. I'm going to do it all in this life. And it is incredible how that came to be in ways that I didn't expect, but how wonderful.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
wonderful. But I want to do it all. That's already, it's a big statement, and some people have that statement, but when what they mean by it is I want to have every person I desire. I want to have a yacht. I want to have my own airplane. That's not what you mean when you say I want to do it all. So it is interesting that there's also a quality of the all in you that already had an all that had a spiritual connection and a drive from another place. And maybe you
Yeah.
want to party with billionaires too. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, I, it's so funny, but yeah, it's so interesting. I think we share that in a sense, like the part of us that wanted to explore and know more, right? So you and I are the same in that regard. But yeah, I've had some interesting experiences over the years as just it's wonderful though. Some stuff that, I go, wow, I had a lot of luck on my side, right? Like being a
Yeah,
little silly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
being very silly, being so innocent. Yeah.
It's, yes, and like you, I have loved to get on a plane. I kind of love it a little less than I used to.
Mhm.
So I'm very I find traveling a little more challenging these days, like carrying my suitcase. But it's mostly physical. It was almost like I didn't feel that, and then because we got stopped by COVID, I noticed a big difference afterwards. Just a big difference in just the ease of being. But you haven't noticed that. You got.
No, no, but I mean, I have noticed like my parents are getting older now, and I really love my time with them and I really cherish it. So I have noticed that I just feel like I have to change something up. Like I don't want to do these huge long trips the way that I used to, like just go and stay somewhere for 3 months or whatever, which is fine. And maybe I will do that again, but at least for right now. I'm trying to keep it to shorter trips to the best of my ability because yeah, I like spending time with them. It's nice to know them in a different way and they're still independent, relatively independent. So it's not like I'm here because they need me, although I would be if they needed me, but it's that we get to just enjoy each other's company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Astrology. That, yeah, it's a very powerful thing. And then obviously there's something sustaining in your relationship with your family. Uh, and that's, with Gemini Mars in the 12th house, it's like, just,
Uh,
yeah, again, so many things to do, right? But absolutely that need to go and gather from many places. And it strikes me that having Mars, Pluto, Sun next year is sort of the opposite of that. It's kind
wow.
of like that.
Mhm.
I know you've written several books already, so, but it could be something that calls you to go really deep into an inner process. So,
Mhm.
mm,
Yeah, thank you for that because like I was thinking if I stay like in pretty much like if I go all the way to Brazil, like sort of towards the Atlantic Ocean, right, the furthest parts, I get that triple conjunction, it moves to the fifth house. If
mhm.
I am in most of Latin America though, that triple conjunction is in the seventh house. So it was like, okay, that I don't think that really works. And so again, talking about Yuriria, because yeah, I've spoken to her so many times on camera, and I remember her saying something to the effect like it might be better to put that placement in the ninth house, um, just because it ends up trining the ascendant and things like that. Now, I will say this, the year before, I was so silly. I was just thinking about, wow, look at all this amazing energy in the 10th house and energy in the second. And that's what mattered to me, right? And I wasn't paying attention to the fact that I had Neptune and Chiron in the first, Neptune conjunct the ascendant. And I ended up on bed rest in the middle of the year. It was awful. And I'd never thought about my health before, really. I mean, again, like Sag Moon, I just eat what I want, right? Like
Yeah,
if I
well,
want,
coming
yeah,
into the
yeah.
coming into the Chiron return
Yeah,
territory.
yeah, exactly. My Chiron return was exact as well last
Yeah.
summer. Yeah, yeah. So that'll do it also. And it was an injury. It was superficial, but it was my hips, basically on my hip. So it was a wound, but it wouldn't stay closed. It kept opening again and again. And then finally the doctor was like, okay, I need you to not move. And so I was in Rio de Janeiro. I was in like the sexiest city in the world, one of them. And I'm in my hotel room and I can't leave the bed. And the only people I really saw during that time were the people who worked at the hotel. So, but it was a very important experience. It was a profound experience. One of the things that made it important was to realize I don't want to do that again. I don't want to chart with Neptune on the ascendant and Chiron in the first. I am not doing that again. And so this year, the reason I rushed back was because it put Jupiter on the ascendant. It put a Gemini Jupiter on the ascendant. And I was like, yes, I could use some of that Gemini energy with Jupiter on it as well. Yeah,
Completely. Yeah.
yeah. You're amazing. I love talking to you. I mean, I know I could talk to you forever and ever. I mean, I could really keep you forever and ever and keep interviewing you forever and ever. But I do want to remind everybody celebrating the feminine in astrology, astrology consciousness, and the great shift. Look at these big dog astrologers we have going on here who are going to be joining us at a very special event at the Omega Institute. I'm really looking forward to it. The Omega Institute is a place I went to 21 years ago, and it was my Saturn return. And it was at the time I was in university. I didn't have any money. I happened to get a scholarship so I could go to a program there. And it was absolutely life changing. Everything changed in my life after that in a million ways. And now to go back as a speaker, right? Like something that it seemed like a faraway dream when I was there as a participant. But now to be there, to be invited there, to be teaching there, in such an incredible, energetic place. I mean, just how wonderful. I feel very, very grateful. And I get to share it with Lynn Bell. Lynn MF Bell, I get to share it with. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And Anne Ortely, I don't know if you've ever taught with Anne. Anne is beloved in New York.
Oh, yes. Anne Orteely, she's legend as well. I'm so looking forward to
She's
hanging out with her.
like I got a really fast talking New Yorker voice, and she's an amazing astrologer, very funny, but
Mhm.
really sharp. And so the energies are going to be quite varied. There's a complementary, a wonderful. I know you're going to be talking about Lilith, and I'm so excited to hear what you'll say about that. I've worked with Lilith for a really long time, and
Mhm.
actually, uh, uh, I was asked by the New York group to give a talk about Lilith earlier this year. So I told them that you were writing a book and you'd be at Omega, and everybody got very excited. And
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
it's part of stepping into some of the weekend is stepping into things we don't know, uh,
Mhm.
and we'll be learning about. And I know Maurice actually went to Alaska to explore the Sedna archetype. Do you believe that?
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's what we do because we
That
love
is what we
we
do.
love the sky. We love the our interconnection to the sky and to each other. And so, yeah, that's what we do. And how wonderful that Maurice, of course, Maurice did that. If
Yeah,
anybody's going
but
to
to
do it,
go to
it's
the
Maurice. Yeah,
source,
yeah.
to go to the source,
It's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then to bring it back, like going to get the elixir and bringing it back, just like you've been to all these places and you bring back a kind of spark of some kind from the many cultures that you have immersed yourself in, that fallen in love with, danced in, or laid on the bed in. I
Yeah, or hate it or whatever. I mean, it all shapes you. It's so true. Yeah, yeah.
So in a way, this exploration, I'm going to be talking about the dark and light feminine. So probably, touching on some of that territory that you also spoke of in the different aspects of Venus. Like, how do you see that? And to catch ourselves, it's so interesting. We all want to see the best of ourselves, and we've all become really good at presenting the best of ourselves. But we also know, it's just like you were saying in the first interview with me, I was kind of like a tornado, and then
You
suddenly,
came in like that, but then
yeah,
once the camera went on, it was like
boom.
pro. It was absolute pro. It was like a swan emerged, right? It was
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah.
this one is a great image. I'm in white today too, which is not common for me. And so we have this, this thing that we touch into. There are other aspects of ourselves, and I think the weekend is going to be about exploring those, but also calling them in, also calling in the goddess energy, and seeing how it's connected to the astrology that we practice, or that the astrology we know. Uh, and that is a unique opportunity to do that with you in person, with me in person, with these, to be and to in this extraordinary place. I think it's very special. And all of these weekends, people have said, wow, uh, amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of thought given to it. I know that there's a sense of wanting to take the participants on a journey, certainly. But then we, as facilitators, we're right in that journey with everybody
Always,
as
always.
well. Oh,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And two wonderful astrologers who both are ex-presidents of OPA, are coming as participants, Arlen Wise and Alexandra Karakosia. I don't know if you know them. They're good friends of mine, and I'm so delighted they decided to come and join us. And then there's a lot of people who come to this who know the astrological archetypes from just briefly, and then come in and bathe in them. And what is better to learn to do that? We go in and out of that technicity and the lived experience of astrology.
Incredible. Wonderful place to bring this particular conversation to a close, but I know we will keep conversing. And so thank you so much, Lynn, for being here.
Thank you
What an
so much, Jen.
absolute privilege to interview you once again, 13 years later, 13 years and a couple of months. Amazing, amazing. How wonderful. And just thank you. Thank you. Every time I've gone to and I've seen you at different astrology conferences and things, you are extraordinarily encouraging and loving of everyone I've seen you interact with, including myself. I have seen how you are with all kinds of different people at different stages in their astrological journey from all kinds of backgrounds. And the absolute love and encouragement and openness and kindness, I know it is not unique to me. By far, I know it is not unique to me because I've seen you give it again and again and again to so many people out there. And how wonderful to continue to have this connection with you and to just celebrate astrology with you, even after all these years. Like, here's to the next 13, here's to the next 26, here's to the next 39. Yeah,
Well,
it'll be great.
that's great. And thank you so much for, again, offering that image back. Again, the love, you're paying attention, you're noticing the loving energy in the world. And that's part of your gift, Nadia. And I see that's what you are looking for in other people as well. And so I'm sure that your students really benefit from that environment that you create, an environment of the heart and a desire for them to love astrology, but more than that, um, to open their own hearts in the world.
Yeah, I really think that's That's the answer. I remember when my parents wanted me to be Prime Minister of Canada. I kid you not. I was like, I got this message constantly. And I was an intellectual kid, right? So it worked out well because I got attention for my intellect at a young age as well. But I remember like my dad kind of had this plan that I was going to first become a human rights attorney and I would parlay that into a career in politics. And then I would rise to be the leader of his favorite political party that he was a part of here in Canada and all of that stuff. So, anyways, I remember I started my undergrad in social justice. And I remember having this very clear moment. I think we were looking at Hegel is the one who came up with zeitgeist, right? He coined that term zeitgeist. And what he was saying was people don't vote according to their interests, they vote according to a spirit of a time. And to me, I interpreted that as they vote according to their hearts. That's what it is, right? Like, really, if you're open to a spirit of a time, what you're really saying is an energy, right? And what is that energy? It can be love, it can be what's really inside of you. But really, I remember thinking so clearly, like, oh my God, that is the power to change things on that level. Just, yelling and screaming about political change, it has its place. I'm really, really grateful to the women who did that, who sacrificed so that I could have and take for granted how much freedom I have today. But at the same time, for me, I want to work with people on that level of heart and that level of energy and a spirit of a time, even if that time is just what we create in an event together. And so thank you for seeing that. How lovely.
Mm. Wow. Zeitgeist. That's,
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Zeitgeist.
great words. The time, the spirit of the time. Yeah. That's another archetypal energy. And that's where the collective planets, changing signs, are bringing in our new zeitgeist. So it's kind
Yes.
of interesting. I mean, we could be in a long conversation about that, Nadiya. So
Easily. Okay. I love you so much. Thank you for joining me from Paris, France. And thank you, everybody out there, for watching. Until we connect again, take care. Bye.